In this video, I'm going to talk about our XML eGateway importer. Here I am on the website. I'm just going to click on this page to take you down to it. What is the eGateway importer? Well, it basically is a program that sits on your network and it looks for XML files in a directory. Those XML files represent sales orders or purchase orders, stock adjustments, any particular type of transaction really, but they can also include account updates and stock record updates. Primary use for it is external e-commerce system. If you buy the Pro version, it will also export extracts of data from Exchequer. So effectively you could upload all your stock positions, your account information to your website. The website could then offer to your customers a system of ordering, including price discounts and all the other sorts of information that's held within Exchequer, and then that would email in or have a file FTP down to your installation, and the eGateway, the XML eGateway, would import that file into Exchequer. So on this page here you can see a list of features and benefits, but if I scroll down there's some examples of XML. And I'd just like to zoom in a little bit there because the first example is just importing a sales order. So effectively here we have a tag that says this is Exchequer record with a header information. Now select the Exchequer company code, so ZZ02. It's a sales order, that's my customer account, date, reference, and everything that's going to go in or out of location AAA. Next we have a line of information. There you can see the stock code, quantity, description, price, the fact it's got standard VAT on it, and I'm also nominated to specify the GL code, although the system would look it all up. So all defaults are looked up, your cost centers and your departments, all that sort of business automatically. Again, on the next line we've actually got a simplified version which just specifies the stock code and quantity, and then we have another line that does a comment. So this adds a comment to the bottom of the sales order. So effectively it's that easy to bring in an order that just gets placed into the system, and of course if it gets failed, someone gets alerted via email and the whole file gets put into a failure folder which could then be edited and resubmitted to the system. Scrolling down we have another example, and this one actually updates or creates an account before importing an order. So if we were allowing, say, the public to place orders on our website, then we could pass down to this eGateway, XML eGateway module, a code or ID number which relates to that customer. The eGateway module would then generate an account code as defined in the system settings, so it give it COMPT01 or COMPT02 if that already existed, and it would then import the sales order, much the same as we just saw in the previous example. But you can see here we have the long code there. So what it's going to do is it's going to look that up and swizzle it. So effectively you're using the external reference from your web system to match off the account code. So it does all the hard work for you effectively. The external system never really need know the account code for this record. And of course all these fields are mapped basically to the Exchequer.com toolkit. And if we go back up to the top there, we can see here we have, if I click on transaction, that's a list of the fields that can be mapped to the transaction header, the line, the account code, and indeed you can even update stock and job codes, so you could actually create jobs on the fly if you're into job costing. Let's see the software in action. First of all, we've got 3 Exchequer companies on our multi-company manager, so I'm going to use ZZ02 there, which I'm already logged into, so let's just pop that up on the screen. There you can see I've actually popped through 1 or 2 test transactions today, but the last one's ending in 878. Over on the left here I've actually got the XML eGateway importer running up, waiting for a file, and what that's doing is it's monitoring an in directory. So in the settings you can set whichever directory you want on your network, If you set it up to collect from email, it will collect from an IMAPI email account the contents, the text contents of a email, and pop it into this folder and then import it. I think it ignores anything that doesn't contain XML, so it does a bit of validation before it takes in any emails. But it's quite a good system, because if you're using an external web hosted system, then all your web hosted system's got to do is ping off an email for the orders. Then you don't have to collect via FTP and all that sort of business. If the software doesn't run, then you don't get the files down and all that complication. Okay, so let's see it in action. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this pre-created test file I've got on my desktop, which is an XML file, and you can see there it just imported that with 3 lines, which is good, because actually I just edited one of those without testing it, and it's that easy to edit. So we'll see the contents. Let's just take the contents into TextPad. So here all we're doing is bringing in an order. We're saying we're going to bring it into that ZZ02 multi-company within Exchequer. It's a sales order. There's the account number, transaction date reference, your ref, that could be the customer's ref, which location we're going to take our stock in and out of. First transaction line contains a stock code, quantity 1, filled in the description, the net value, standard rated VAT, and I've actually specified the GL, the sales GL, but of course that would default from whatever's set in Exchequer as if you entered it into Exchequer. Second line, I've just actually said stock code and quantity, and the last line I've taken in a free text comment into Exchequer. So of course if we pop over to Exchequer, the proof is in the viewing of the transaction. So there we go, there's an alarm at £48 and a comment too, and there's my your ref went into the reference. So that's all very simple, and of course it put that into the imported folder. I believe there's a switch that actually turns that off, because once you're up and running you probably wouldn't need that list of files, but you would be probably interested in anything that fails, and of course you can set an email address within it, so it will email somebody within the organization if there's a failure. They can go in and have a look at the file and see, probably by the error description you get a pretty good idea of why it's been failed, and possibly edit it. It's not that difficult to understand that file, I don't believe, if you've got a reasonable understanding of Exchequer. Of course the Pro version actually exports all the data, so up here we can set up 3 scheduled times to run a export. Now what you can do there is you can export certain things at certain times, like you might want to export your stock several times a day to reflect your stock movements, keep it up to date, and do all the rest at maybe 6 in the morning. But you can see there we've got cost centers, currency codes, GLs, jobs, outstanding transactions, history, price matrix is also exported. So if you sent that off to your website, then you could recreate customer discounts as defined within Exchequer itself. So let's just go through some of the settings. If I go here, view settings, you can see there we can view the logs and various other things. But the settings are relatively easy, in that the first section there discusses your email setup. If you set it to update at 0 every minute, then that just disables that. Next we see the company code, so that's the default company code if not specified in the files, but you saw in my example I did specify this. There I can specify the in folder, and I believe there's the email address to send errors to, and various other things down here. So it can close down between 2 hours, import automatically, which you'd expect it to probably do. You wouldn't change that. You can also change the entity names. Oh, here we can set the definition of how it creates, the format it creates new customer names. So if you use an external reference, it would be creating that, as I explained earlier. And so on. Is pretty simple stuff, I think. Also, the Pro has a series of settings which enabled you to define the hours of export, as I said earlier. And down here you can turn on individual things to be exported at the particular set hour. So the users who use this, they just leave it running on the network, and it just sits there ticking away. It's that simple.